Welcome to the Bella Vista Gardening Program. I'm Andrea Klokow, a Benton County Master Gardener, and joining me today is Wanda Stutsman, who's also a fellow Benton County Master Gardener. Today, we will be discussing dividing perennials. We'll also be telling you about events that are coming up and what you need to be doing in your September garden other than watering and weeding. But first, I want to thank our sponsors. The Benton County Master Gardeners and the Bella Vista Garden Club have chosen to continue director-level membership of the Bella Vista Community TV station, and we really appreciate their ongoing support for our gardening show. For upcoming events, Compton Gardens is holding their Dr. Compton Native Tree and Plant Sale on Wednesday through Friday, September 25th through the 27th, from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., and on Saturday, September 28th, from 7 a.m. to noon. This is a great place to get native plants for your garden. The 120th Annual Benton County Fair will be held Friday, September 20th through Saturday, September 28th at the Benton County Fairgrounds. The Benton County Master Gardeners will be represented there, and it's a good place to go and ask your gardening questions of a Benton County Master Gardener. So joining me today is Wanda, who joined the Benton County Master Gardeners in the spring class of 2024 after moving here from Fort Worth, Texas, where she was a Master Gardener for 10 years. We are very fortunate to have her here as she brings a tremendous amount of gardening knowledge and experience, and she's happy to share it. So today, she's going to teach us about dividing perennials. But first I have to ask, do I need to divide them? I mean, mine looked great this summer.
So, great question, Andrea. No, you don't always have to divide every fall. In fact, maybe every 3 years you might divide a clump. Okay. If the clump seems to be very healthy and is impeding on other plants, then I would recommend popping it out of the ground and dividing it in the fall. It's a great time to share your plants with your friends, also to spread your plants throughout your garden so you don't have to buy more plants.
You know, I always think of planting in the spring, but you're talking about fall. Why is fall a good time to divide perennials and plant them?
So your perennials are going dormant in the fall, and it is a really good idea to take them out, cut the foliage off of them, divide them, put them back in the ground, get them nice and cozy in there where they'll continue to absorb nutrients from the earth and become stronger, and they'll hit the ground running faster in the spring. A lot of times in the spring when we want to plant perennials, we maybe procrastinate a little bit and we wait until the weather's a little warmer and the plants have a tougher time getting established.
So when I replant, I divide, replant, do I need to fertilize them in the fall when I replant them?
So my rule of thumb is I fertilize 3 times a year, March, June, and September, for all of my perennials. I also do the grass at the same time. Maybe that's a little overkill, I'm not sure, but anytime I dig a plant up and divide it or transplant it, I make sure I put some slow release fertilizer of some sort in with it. And remember, too much fertilizer isn't always a good thing. So be stingy with your fertilizer because it can burn and damage the roots.
Okay, so what if I don't know where I want to plant them yet, or if I want to give them away to a friend and I need to put them in a pot and I can't get them in the ground right away? How do I overwinter them?
So you can easily just stick them in landscape pots, the black plastic pots you get at your nursery. You can put them in there. The one thing that you have to remember about perennials, they all have growing zones. Some are more tolerant to colder weather than others. And we were talking earlier about, do they have to go in your garage? Well, perennials like to be outside. and most of them are tolerant to all of our temperatures until we have a couple of really cold snaps. And what I recommend is keep them protected from the north winds, maybe along the south-facing side of your home, somewhere where they can get a little bit more heat exposure from the sun. And then if we do have a cold snap, go ahead and maybe cover them or bring them into your garage for that period of time. Because when our temperature in our gardens is 15 degrees, that is what the plant in a landscape pot will feel. If the temperature, if the plant is in the ground, then it is going to feel like 25 degrees to the plant. So if the plant's cold hardy only to 20 degrees, then it's better off in the ground, or it's better off in your garage when it's 15 degrees outside. So it's a little bit of math there, and it's kind of a little difficult to keep up with, but it's always good to give landscape pots a little bit of protection for the winter, but I don't recommend putting them in your garage all winter.
Okay, so they do need a little bit of water, probably from the rain and
They
the
need
atmosphere.
water. They
Sure.
love rainwater in the winter. They dusting of snow is fine, and they love that south-facing sun.
Okay, good to know. Okay, so if I don't happen to get around to dividing my perennials in the fall, what do I do? Do I wait until next year? Is there another better time, another good time to divide them, or am I just out of luck?
I don't know that I've ever seen a clump of anything, any perennial die off because somebody didn't divide it. They may just not bloom as well. You can skip that year and just do it in the next fall. You can do it in the spring, but I urge you not to procrastinate. So try to do it in the March timeframe and get them into the ground. Of course, they're perennials, so they still can handle the cold. You might be out there with a sweatshirt and your gloves and everything and a little chilly, but they can tolerate that. So, so you can do it in the spring.
So, okay, but you say fall is better.
I just think fall is better. Gets them established, gets you out in your garden, gives you something to do.
Sounds good. Well, okay then, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, Wanda is going to show us actually how to divide the perennials once you dig them up.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the Garden Show. Wanda, who's telling us today about dividing perennials, has brought some coneflowers and daylilies from her garden to demonstrate for us how to properly divide them. So, Wanda, can you show us what we're actually supposed to do?
I sure can. Yes, I brought coneflowers, and you can see that they have seed heads on them. This is also a really good time to cut those off and save them, especially when they're dry and brown like this. That means they'll be the most viable for you to use in your garden somewhere else or share with a friend. Especially if you have a special coneflower like a white one or a terracotta or something like that, you might want to share the seeds. So we divide. The best practice for dividing perennials is to get a shovel and put it under the perennial and pop them out of the ground. Sometimes you have to, our soils here are really, really hard in some places, and some places they're not. But I know here in Bella Vista, it's not pretty. So you may struggle to get them out of the ground, especially a really tight clump like our daylilies that I'm going to show you. But so you take a shovel, you dump them, pop them out of the ground, and then take them over to a water hose and go ahead and rinse all the soil off of them. That just helps, it keeps it cleaner for you, it gives you an opportunity to pull them apart easier, and it also allows you to see where the roots are going and what is a plant and what's not a plant. And you would be really surprised to know that in a clump like this, you could probably get 30 plants.
No.
Okay, I don't recommend that. I just go in and I'll pull apart something like this. And I could take this down even further. These are coneflowers. One of the things I like to do when I pull them apart and get them all separated to smaller clumps. If you take this out and you do single little clumps, you will not have much of a show in your garden the next year. So I would take this, divide it into maybe 5 clumps, and then plant those individually. So it is perfectly okay to come in and do that. Just chop them off, and you can even go lower if you would like. So just chop them, and now you've got this to work with. It's easier to work with in your garden. Take that and plant it. You can put it in a landscape pot like we talked.
That seems like a lot of foliage to cut off.
It is, but the plant's going dormant for the winter, and it has already stored as much food and nutrients in its roots that it needs to get through the winter.
By this time of year,
It's
already stored everything it needs.
Right. Being from Texas, we didn't really do this until like October,
Okay.
Because we still had hot temperatures in September. But here, the temperatures are milder, so I would recommend doing it here in the latter part of September. And you can go all the way through to November if you like as well. So this is what it will look like. Make sure when you dig your hole that you don't go up past the soil line of the original plant when you're packing the soil back in. And make sure that you don't squeeze the roots together. Make sure they're spread out and very happy laying out in the soil. So you may have a hole this big, and don't just shove them down in there. They'll survive, but it's best not to.
Can I ask, if I were to put that in a pot to keep it over the winter, what size pot would I put that little clump in?
Okay, so I would not put a clump any larger than this in a 1-gallon landscape pot. This will fit just fine in a 1-gallon landscape pot. If you wanted to do a bigger clump, you might want to go to a 3-gallon pot. So, and I would not put it in a quart by any means. So if you were to divide these out even further, like I said, and you really want to propagate, so now we have all these littles. Those can go in quart pots by themselves. So you can see where there are a lot of plants here. And these are going to be more tender, so these might be best suited in a sunroom for the winter than maybe the larger clumps. So these are the ones you might want to have to babysit a little bit more through the winter. So coneflowers are very easy to propagate and pull apart.
Can you, I missed, I'm sorry I wasn't watching, I missed when you pulled that clump off. Can you show me how to pull with your big clump? How do you even know where to go to start for breaking this up?
Once the soil is off of the roots, I just take it and sort of finesse it apart. And it's okay if you break 1 or 2 little stems off, but I just sort of pull it until it loosens itself. And all the roots are entangled. And you don't have to be too gingerly with it. You can pull them off. And I'm going to show you in just a minute these daylilies. Daylilies like to really get entangled. You can see all the roots here on the bottom of these daylilies, and they just mesh together, woven, nature's
turn
woven.
that around so the camera can see the bottom of.
Yes, so this was a large clump that's probably been in the ground for about 6 or 7 years, and truthfully, I had a hard time getting it out of the ground, and then I had a hard time pulling off some of them. So again, you can take, if you really can't get them apart with your hand, you can take a serrated knife and just go through between the 2 stalks and cut them. They'll recover. But I always try my hardest to just do it. Sorry.
Generally an outdoor activity, right?
Definitely an outdoor activity. Don't use your dining table for this. So So this is what a single plant will look like, and notice how many roots are on there. It's very healthy. You can also notice that they fan out at the bottom. One of the things that daylilies are subjected to is crown rot or root rot. When you go to plant this daylily, I want you to make a ball of soil in the top of their hole and sit this on top of it like that and let those roots fan out just like that. And that will get the soil up underneath the top and the bottom of the stalk, and it allows the roots to go out. If you don't get soil up in here, sometimes in some of our clay soils, the water will stay in that area, and it'll rot the center of your daylily.
Can I ask, on that clump you're holding, it looks like when you fan it out like that, the roots go out pretty far. Would that fit in a 1-gallon pot for the winter, or does it need larger?
If I only had 1-gallon pots to
lot.
work with, yes, which all of us gardeners do, I can come in and I can trim these roots like that. And you're going, ouch, ouch, ouch.
I am.
This plant will survive just fine, and now look, it looks like it'll fit just fine in a 1-gallon pot.
So on the coneflowers, you trimmed the top. Do you do that on the daylilies?
So definitely you can. Daylilies are semi-evergreen. Definitely in Texas they are, but if you ever purchase daylilies from a vendor and have them shipped to you, they'll come like this, a lot like an iris would come. Mm-hmm. And so you can definitely trim off the foliage and put that back in the ground. If it's, I don't always do that with daylilies. The reason you might want to do it more with the larger, taller plants is just for handling.
Okay.
But all of our perennials, we tend to want to cut back. We do most of that in February and March if you're not dividing.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so if you're not dividing, one of the things with native perennials is we like to leave the seed heads on them for the birds and for the wildlife. So if you have zinnias, coneflowers, things like that in your garden, you might want to leave the foliage and the seed heads on them for the birds if you're not going to collect them yourself. Mm-hmm. So there are other plants. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask about this cluster of daylilies right here. How many new plants would you generally make out of that particular cluster? I mean, is that 2? Is that 20?
So because they're so tight in here, sometimes you can get a cluster like that and they're easier to separate, and I separate them down to individual plants. But this would be really difficult to get 5 plants out of. There are 5 plants in this clump, but it'll be really hard. See, here's one where I've damaged the top of it. And I would almost just take this clump. But a lot of other people who propagate and grow daylilies, definitely pull them all apart. One, they don't let their clumps get this big, but they pull them all apart and plant them as individual plants. So it is a lot of effort to pull these apart, but they do come apart. Using the water hose to clean the dirt out really does help. These have been dug for 3 days. So I dug them one day, put them in a 5-gallon bucket with a little bit of water, and have left them in the shade. And now they're still very viable. I think they would last at least a week. I didn't submerge them in water. I just put a little bit of water.
So you don't have to do all of that on one day.
No.
You can spread it out over a week.
Right. Well, most of us like to go to our other gardeners' houses and dig up clumps of stuff we want, and then we take it back to our house and divide it and get 10 plants. So I always like to say that I like to house sit for my fellow gardeners when they go on vacation. because I can go with my shovel while they're gone, and I can dig up, and they'll never notice.
Never notice. Well,
No.
I'll keep that in mind if I ever need a house sitter.
You won't be calling me.
I'll keep an eye on my perennials.
So we are talking about these two perennials today, but there are other perennials that we can divide.
Oh, tell me.
Lots of them, and I have a list that can come up on the screen of different things. Peonies, we were dividing peonies yesterday. We dug some at Master Gardner's house. You've got dahlias. Obviously, the dahlias can be propagated, they're pulled out of the ground this time of year. We learned some stuff last night about dahlias at our meeting. And you can divide those at this time. And normally you overwinter those in some type of medium. And then we have hostas and lamb's ear and the whole list that was on the screen of different plants that are great to be divided and shared.
In the fall.
In the fall, yes.
If we get to it.
Because if you're not watching football.
Okay. Well, if we're not doing it at the dining room table, then we can't do both at the same time.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you. That was an excellent tutorial. It always helps me to see it done in person. I just, reading about it, I understand it, but seeing it really makes me feel confident that I can go home and do it myself in my own garden if I can get the clumps out.
Yes.
But
thank you for having me.
Yes. Well, is anything else you want to tell us about dividing perennials?
No, I think we're good, but you can always ask a Master Gardener.
That's right.
And hopefully most of them will know how to do this.
Yes, you can find us at the Benton County Fair coming up in September, as I said earlier. But for now, let me just tell you a little bit about what to do in your September garden. If you are growing annuals and herbs, you want to keep deadheading them and continue to fertilize them through September. And think about whether you want to save the plants or any of the seeds for the winter. You can plant them next year or use some of the herbs in your cooking during the colder months. And with perennials, now is a good time to divide your spring blooming perennials, as Wanda has been telling us. You can also plant peonies at this time. Many of the perennials benefit from fall planting because, as she said, they have time to grow roots over the winter and get established. And you can also, around this time, add more mums to your garden if you need some color where some of the other plants are starting to fade away. If you have roses, the Japanese beetles that we had this year are gone by now, and there should be a flush of blooms for the next few months. You want to keep deadheading them and checking for a black spot, and stop fertilizing your roses after early September. So right about now should be the last fertilization you apply. If you are a lawn lover and you love a green lawn, you need to keep watering your lawn. Grass requires about 1 inch of rain weekly. Late September is a good time to overseed if you have a fescue lawn. And freezing those seeds for a few days before application will help with the germination of the grass seed. Now is also the time, or later September is also the time to apply some pre-emergence if you want to get ahead of the winter weeds. Trees and shrubs can be planted later in September when the weather cools. Fall planting tends to be the most successful because the plant's energy goes into the root growth. You want to replenish mulch and add mulch around newly planted trees, but keep that mulch a few inches away from the trunk so that it's not actually touching the trunk of the trees. And vegetables, if you're a vegetable gardener, as the weather starts to cool down, you may get some vegetables to harvest. You can still plant turnips, mustard, spinach, lettuce, radishes until mid-September. I just planted peas and kale yesterday. Probably the most important thing you can do to keep diseases out of your garden and to keep the pests away, remove all the leaves, pull your old tomato plants, and throw them in the trash. Do not compost them so you don't risk spreading that disease to next year. If you have any invasive plants, can I hear it for poison ivy?
Oh my gosh.
This is a good time to spray and kill the invasives. Bush honeysuckle, privet, poison ivy. Fall is the time of year, as Wanda told us earlier, that the plants start to store their energy in the trunks and the stems and the roots. So if you're spraying them now, it will cause that plant to be really absorb quickly the herbicide and kill it. So if you do not want to use any chemicals, you can use a 20% horticultural vinegar, and it may take several sprayings, but it is safer than other chemicals. Now, if you have any questions about gardening in September, remember the Master Gardener website, you can submit questions, bentoncountymastergardeners.com/home. It's filled with gardening information. Their meetings are the first Tuesday of every month, and the next one will be October 1st at 5:30 p.m. at the Lodge at the Bentonville Church of Christ in Bentonville. Now, for more information on the Bella Vista Garden Club, you can go to their website, bellavistagardenclub.com. Their next meeting will be Wednesday, September 25th at 9:30 a.m. for the social time, 10 a.m. for the meeting at the Bella Vista Community Church. And also, the Bella Vista Garden Club will be awarding two $5,000 Bella Vista Garden Club Dorothy Wallace scholarships to University of Arkansas students. Guests are always welcome to join us, as we are there to share good gardening information. So thank you, Wanda, for joining us today, sharing your knowledge, showing us how to divide perennials. And I hope you've enjoyed the program, and we'll tune in again next month. And till then, don't forget to stop and smell the roses.
How funny.